Welcome back to AnimeCons TV. I'm Doug Wilder, and joining you for yet another con review is Charles Dunbar. This time we're reporting from the first year convention Anime Fan Fest in New Jersey. So what did you think about the con?
I'm just gonna sit back and say it reminded me of the cons of old that I used to go to, where it's not too big, it's not too small, and I feel happy.
It's surprisingly, like, it's one of those cons where it feels very easygoing, but I don't feel like anybody's slacking off.
No, oh no.
Yeah, this is laid back but not lazy.
You know, it's like you can tell the difference between laid back and lazy. And one of the things I was commenting about this morning was this show is run very, very professionally, and you can tell within the first 10 minutes of being in here that they're not screwing around.
I mean, we're in one room. Just look behind us. Oh, they have these step and repeat type banners behind all the panelists and stuff. And this is one thing I would say is the panel content was something that really stood out at me this year. For, you know, a con that's, I mean, just right now, I mean, organizers have worked on other events, and it shows.
They do a lot of comic conventions.
Yeah, but you don't normally see that, and so they brought in a lot of really knowledgeable talent. Michael Toole is doing stuff. Mike Toole, Dara Surat.
Bear in mind who's sponsoring the event, and they brought in pretty much the entire guard from Otaku USA. So you're gonna have the right kind of crowd to give the right kind of programming that a first-year con frequently doesn't get, because a lot of first-year shows are a lot of trial and error and a lot of leaning heavily on fans to provide content because they're still trying to figure out where they're going.
And there was the fan-generated content, but it's, I would say, for lack of a better term, it's veteran fans, people that have done panels, people who have clearly done panels before. Exploiting them and using them to their maximum. And everybody that went to a panel, like, I think, you know, Friday you didn't see, it was kind of slow going, there wasn't a lot of people, but by Saturday that had picked up, and no one had an empty panel room, and the people that were in the smaller rooms definitely wanted to be. The one piece of feedback I would give about the panels is there was no gap between when one was scheduled to end and the next one started to begin, and this is a lesson that I think all cons can really learn.
Yeah, there's a
15 minutes between each panel is all you need, and it makes life so much easier for everybody.
Instead, what they did was they stopped you 10 minutes early and had you clear out of the room, which is a perfectly viable way of doing it. There's conventions that do that already. It's just when you do that, if you bring in someone who has a ready-to-go panel or has timed out their panel to be like an hour long, then they have to rush. And I had to do that a couple of times. I had to rush through Ghibli and I had to rush through the first anime because at the very end I had to just condense everything down because I didn't have enough time to just go into everything because I had to be out of there in like 50 minutes.
But some of the neater panels that I got to see was one Darius Washington did, the class of '86, was talking about just how that was a really good year for anime. There's a lot of good stuff, and he showed some of the things that were released then.
The OAV boom that had been started by Station Talos, it really had come into fruition. It actually started in 1985, but it was coming up greatly that a lot of direct-to-video productions were hitting out.
Michael Toole did one that's all about how, from start to finish, the process of making anime, all the different layers that go into the cells, and like all the primary sketches, storyboarding and things. And it was something you'd never really seen at a con before.
So they ended up getting the color pink by alternating red and white in each frame. And he said that just completely captured his imagination. And that's something that also kind of happened to me too. So let's step through kind of how anime is made from start to end. You know, first there's planning. There's the producers get the money together, they get the ideas, and they work on a scenario and a script. Once the script is ready, then they go to artboards and concept art. They start shaping the world of what they're going to produce. Then they go to storyboard, where they do kind of like a master blueprint of the whole affair. And then storyboard is examined by the animators, and they get their shot assignments and layouts, which I'll describe in some detail later. Then there's key animation, which is kind of the meat on the bones of this whole thing. Then in between animation, and then color and special effects, and finally photography, or as it's now known, compositing.
They made sure that the content at this con was catered towards the fact that this is an anime festival, and they really went overboard to make sure that you got the anime part.
Yeah.
But it's not to say that there wasn't fun stuff for everyone else to do. What they did, what interesting was, they would have the panel rooms staggering against each other. So one would be on the hour and one would be on the half hour. And then they'd have stuff going on in the two main event spaces. Now, in the main event spaces, you had like your Q&As, you had your like giveaway panels, you had your game shows, and the kind of stuff that the kids on the floor that just want to look for a diversion or something to do could just run into those rooms, have a good time, and then go back out onto the floor. Whereas the people that come to the shows because they want to get the good content, they could literally flip between panel rooms. Like, you could go into one room for half an hour and then immediately run to the next room for half an hour and go back and keep doing that. And you could find the right program for you, and then if you really liked a panel, you'd stay in there. But they made it to the point where you could sample a little bit of everything if you really just sat down and said, let's do it. And they always put the guests in at least one panel over in the main event space. And that was cool because you had like the stumble upon people, the people that would never have gone to the panel rooms because they're just that's not in their nature.
Yeah, and the thing
could see it.
Yeah, the thing I'll say there is, normally when you have like a panel room or something in like kind of the exhibit hall floor where it's only set up with like pipe and drape something, it's a detriment. Mm-hmm. You feel like everything else is interrupting, whereas this, I think, actually was a boon. It actually got people to kind of just say, oh, what's going on in there? And
I had
take
a couple
look.
of carryovers. People who just walked by my Ghibli panels on Friday night and were like, "Oh, hey!" And then I seeing them the whole weekend.
Yeah, and it turned out to be beneficial. I would love to see them get some more panel rooms. Like right now, they had no function space in the hotel.
The wedding.
Yeah,
there's a gigantic Indian wedding going on.
But it was so cool because
they were showing up here, and they were showing up to the stuff here in their beautiful wedding outfits.
Yeah, and kudos to both groups. Like. Mm-hmm. The fans were friendly too, and like everyone's just like, you know what, let's have a good time together, and that is so refreshing to see. Where it seems like every week you're always hearing like a news story of like, oh, this con had attendees were mean to the other group and stuff. Whereas this was just, hey, you want to have a good time with us? We want to have a good time with you, and that's.
I think it was because of the wedding that they didn't expand into the DoubleTree because if
I
you
think
can
we should say where we are. We're in the Garden State Convention
We're in the
Center.
former Anime Next location right here, and this place is great because you've got the Expo Center on one side and you've got the hotel on the other side. And when Next is here, they always use the Expo Center is usually they've got the concert/main event space, artist alley, dealer's room, and then in the DoubleTree are all the panel rooms, video game rooms. The panel rooms and some of the game rooms and the video game rooms are in one of the other hotels. And they use the space here. They were able to manage the space really, really well.
Yeah.
Because when you walked in, I've been going to ANext for so long that when I saw the rooms here, it was how are they going to manage to put the panel rooms up and everything in here? And then I saw they use like what ANext would use is the administration rooms. They were using as panel rooms and video rooms. They managed to mirror the setup with the artist alley and the vendors hall, so it looks just like it. And then they would have the two spaces in for the main event stuff.
The other thing I'll say about kind of the part where the vendors and the artist alley is I like that the first thing that you hit when you hit the floor is artist alley. Mm-hmm. So many cons like toss artist alley kind of in a corner, kind of out of the way. Mm-hmm. This one, you can go past it, but at the same time, it's right there. So you're getting more foot traffic in
You're
there.
going to go through it,
and I think that's a nice part to see.
And they put the autographs over in the hall. They have all the autograph tables. It really does feel like you're going to a comic expo. I mean, that's the one thing that you feel like you're at a comic thing. Like if you've ever been to New York Comic Con has this thing about it where you've got all the autographs along one wall, then there's the artists right across from them, and then you've got the vendors in the next hallway. It was very similar to that.
It kind of had the best of both worlds. I think it had that really comic expo form, but again, there was a really good drive on fan-created programming, which is, I think, one of the things that AnimeCons do a lot more than Comic-Cons. A lot more. I mean, there are definitely Comic-Cons that have kind of, but this was the focus on it. it really pushed the fan fest of it, I think.
It reminded me of two shows. It reminded me first of Anime Next 03 when it was over in Rye, and that was a small hotel con, but it felt like the same kind of vibe, same kind of contentment. People were petering in. It was getting more and more full by Saturday night, and the people were having fun. At the same time, the way the show floor was organized and the panel was organized, it reminded me a lot of the last year of New York Anime Festival in 2009, when, even though that was a professional, like a Reed Pop event, you had you had like a LARP, you had your game rooms, you had your dealer's room, your artist alley, you had your panel rooms, and it was all in one giant space, and it allowed attendees to experience a little bit of everything. I remember calling that like the perfect iteration of a professionally run anime festival, because it just worked. It completely worked. And this one completely worked. The other thing about it is it's tripping. A lot of the people I talked to were saying it reminded them of A-Next, but without some of the rush. And there is a certain familiarity to the location, and the location.
Because, this is using it to the
location was
because
being
people know
used.
this spot.
Yeah, and location was being used similar enough. Where there's tons of people that showed up here because they wanted to see what the show was, and they're coming away feeling that it's like a smaller version of the show that used to be here, and that's going to work in their favor for the future.
Yeah. So I'm definitely keeping this one on my radar. I would love to come back again. I got to do a couple panels as well, and again, they were a little lighter on the attendance side, but at the same time, the people really wanted to be there and was really enjoying it. And from everyone I talked to, panels were something, and of course, there was some decent variety in vendors. This is something I want to bring up.
Oh God, did you put the comics in the car?
They're in my backpack off camera, unfortunately, but. A group of our friends found this one vendor that had a bunch of old manga in like American comic book format.
The kind of stuff you saw in the 90s.
Yeah, it's 90s. Some of that was 80s, and we went
to town on that stuff.
We found like some of the most obscure things like Venture Robo, which is actually Get a Robo Go. Things like that.
I found like
we found a bunch of Go-Go 13.
Yeah, I had a 4-issue Star Blazers run, a bunch of Lensmen just sitting there.
These were $2 for $1, but it was something that I hadn't seen at a con in a long time, like especially that strong a variety. And because it wasn't crowded, you could take the time to really go through these long boxes of comics and stuff, because so many vendor halls, even good ones, when they get crowded, you don't really have time to browse. You have to know what you're looking for.
You really do.
Whereas this was a good opportunity to spend. So I think they've got their numbers there. I mean, I want every con to succeed. Succeed.
Yeah, you do.
But I don't want to see this one explode with population, because I think it would lose a little bit of the charm that it has right now.
I mean, you honestly, that's anybody's game. I mean, you really can't tell how a show's going to do past its first year. I've been to a lot of shows that did first years that were spectacular, and then the second year they just kind of fell apart because people went that first year to see what it was. And the thing is, there are a lot of conventions. I mean, this show right now, we're 2 weeks out from Castle Point AnimeCon in Hoboken, and we're 1 week before CloverCon, which is this little con at a 4-H club that is literally in the next town. It is in that little spot between the two shows. And then a month from now is Anime Next in Atlantic City. So it's got its sweet spot right now. And there were a lot of people that were coming out to the show because they wanted to see what it was. I think the show left a very good impression. I really do. And that's going to work really well in its favor for future years.
So that's all I think we have to say about Anime Fan Fest. If you have any comments that you would like to mention on it, please send us an email, podcast@animecons.tv. You can also leave us a voicemail at 762-ADEQUATE. Or you can,
I love that phone number. I haven't called it in a few years. But
or you can even send us a note on Twitter at AnimeConsTV. I'm Doug Wilder. Once again, I was joined by the illustrious Charles Dunlop.
I am not illustrious. Well, maybe a little bit.
The phenomenal Charles Dunlop.
No. That's AJ Styles.
But
the prolific.
There we go.
This is like
cult of personality.
This is like my 14th con this year so far.
Anyway, once again, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next time.